Good.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome. We're just going to leave it a couple of minutes for people to join. So please do feel free to leave a message in the chat to let us know where you are joining us from in the world and perhaps what languages you teach and what level. And if you have any questions or answers, we're going to leave a little bit of time at the end to respond to those. And there is a separate question and answer box. So if you could please use that for the questions, that just keeps it a little bit separate from the chat, which we'll just use to introduce ourselves. So you are all very welcome.
And as well, when you say yes, say who you are, but I think it would be lovely as well from us to hear your experiences with dictation. So if there are any activities that we are suggesting that you've used, say how they've gone for you, if they worked, if they have worked, if they haven't worked so well, or you got any ideas, please share it. I think it would be fantastic to have a little bit of healthy chat, conversation where everybody shares ideas together. So we are not just giving you ideas, we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely. And as the title explains, it isn't really a new thing. I think some of you will probably be seasoned in using dictation in your lessons, particularly those of you who've been teaching for quite a while, as we have, Esme. But for some of you, it might be something completely new. So hopefully there will be a little bit of something in our presentation for all of you, and you'll be able to take away lots and lots of practical ideas that you can start to implement ready for September 2024.
Mm-hmm. Or from now. We can do
from
it.
now, well, immediately, in fact, yeah. From Monday.
From Monday. Let's see. Let's look at the chat. Okay, let's see what we got in. Yes, please use the chat. Oh, there's no anyone in the chat. Please, when you come in, just say something in the chat. It would be absolutely lovely to say your name, where you're from, where you are at the moment, what languages you teach. It would be absolutely fantastic to hear from you. So please use the chat. Just say hello to us. As we can let's talk to you. Oh, here we are. Oh, lovely, lovely to, I was going to say lovely to see you, but lovely to read you. We got a message saying hello, lovely, so great to see your faces. And it's like, we love to see your face as well. Brilliant. Hi, Caroline. So, Kirsten, French teacher from Bucks. Oh, I teach in Bucks. This is Risbro. Lovely. Yes, let's see. Just keep saying good hello in the chat. Okay,
Have we got anyone from outside of the UK, Esme? Are there teachers from?
Not at the moment. I had people from other webinar. There were people from Hong Kong and Sicily.
Amazing. Wow.
And Hungary.
Incredible.
But here I can see for everyone's from the UK. I mean, to be honest, when we go dictation, I imagine it will be more UK thing. I don't think, or isn't it? It's a very, very British GCSE driven kind of thing.
And I think as much as everyone is a little bit sad that the language show is no longer live in London, it does mean that we can extend our reach beyond the UK, which is great. I can see the numbers of participants is still rising. So I'm just going to give it one more minute and then we will make a nice prompt start. For anyone who's just joined us, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what languages you teach, where you're based in the country, what your experiences to date have been of teaching dictation, or if you're completely new to the world of dictation. And there is also a separate question and answer box. So we will fly through the presentation in the next 40 minutes or so, but we will allow some time at the end for questions. So please do pop any questions in that separate box. Okay, I think the participants have stabilized now, so I think I'm going to make a start. So first of all, we're going to welcome you. So thank you for joining us on this bright and sunny, or certainly from Bridlington, it's bright and sunny afternoon for the second day of the Language Show Live. My name's Susie Buell, and I am currently head of modern languages at Cundall Manor School just outside of York. And my website, you can see there if you would like to have a look at other things that I get up to in the world of languages, is polyglotlanguages.co.uk. Over to you, Esme.
Yes, hello. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with the lovely Susie. We've been working together for the last few months on this on dictation, so it's just absolutely fantastic to share with you some of our ideas. And my name is Esmeralda Salgado. I'm head of MFL in Princess Risborough School, and my blog is MFL Craft. You got the link there, and at the end you will have a copy of our presentation in a QR form, so all the links will be live for you to have a look at.
So feel free to just sit back and enjoy the presentation. By all means, make notes, but the QR code on the final slide will take you to this presentation. So you'll be able to make a copy and share that with your colleagues back in school. So let's make a start. So in our session today, we're going to start with a quick overview of changes, so what to expect from September 2024, and there will be a link that you can click on at a later stage to the summary document, which has been very kindly sent to us by Helen Myers from the Association for Language Learning. We're going to do a little focus on phonics, because phonics, we feel, is the basis for successful work on dictation, so how to help our learners to understand the sound spelling link in order to assist them with reading aloud more accurately in the target language, whatever the target language that you teach might be, French, German, or Spanish. And then the second focus, the main focus, if anything, of today's session is dictation, how we can help our learners to then use their developing phonic awareness to assist them with their target language writing. So this is a perfect opportunity for modeling the language in our journey to fluency. We're going to end with a few tips on how to integrate technology into the teaching of dictation, and then just a few final top tips before we share the QR code and our contact details once again, should you wish to contact us after the presentation. So, moving on, overview of changes. So for those of you who haven't seen this document, this is a summary document of the new GCSE for languages, which has been produced by our lovely colleague Helen Myers from the Association for Language Learning. When you get a copy of the presentation at the end, you can click on that link, and the areas of particular interest with reference to this presentation are pages 53 to 7, which specifically reference dictation, and pages 76 to 83, which specifically reference reading aloud speaking tests. So, in terms of phonics and dictation, if you look at the subject content for French, German, and Spanish GCSE, so this is for first teaching from September of 2024 and first examinations from summer of 2026. The key points to note linked to today's webinar are that in the exam, students will need to learn to be able to confidently read out loud from a written prompt. So that's obviously something quite new. Students will also be expected to pronounce words with stress patterns that allow their speech to be clear and comprehensible. So I think we've always focused on accurate pronunciation, enunciation, etc. But this will certainly be much more of an emphasis in the new style exam. And then finally, students will be expected to use their phonic awareness to transcribe what they hear with a good degree of accuracy. And that is hopefully where today's session will help you. The link to the full document is there at the bottom of the slide, so please do feel free to click on that in your own time. So, moving on too quickly. We're not going to spend too much time on phonics, but just to say that if you are aware of the 3 pillars model, which has been much spoken about by Ofsted recently, it states quite clearly within that document that schemes of learning should show clear logic behind progression in phonics, including when to teach differences between English sound spelling correspondences and those of the target language. So if you are expecting an inspection anytime soon, and I hope for your sake that you aren't, then it will be an expectation from the team, particularly if it is a team of subject specialists, that your schemes of learning already contain those links to phonics. There should also be evidence in your curriculum planning of planned practice and review of phonemes and how these link to graphemes is happening across key stages. So that's from key stage 3 all the way up to key stage 4. So for the full document, you can click on the link there. And I'm going to now hand over to Esme, who is going to talk to you a little bit about the learning journey and the role of dictation.
Hi, thank you, Susie. Well, the title of our presentation is just Dictation, the not so new kid in the blog. And I just wanted to really make the emphasis that at the end of the day, yes, we do have a new GCSE with some dictation and reading aloud tasks, but dictation is not something new that suddenly we should be just incorporating in our teaching. If when thinking about the learning journey and thinking about Rosenshine and how the students progress, I always think about modeling. Then we have some scaffolding production, some creativity, and eventually some independence. For me, this is the 4 stages that I always think in all my schemes of work and in all my lessons. And definitely in the modeling aspect, dictation is super important, and I think we teachers been doing it for a long time. There's a debate if this should be a task about it or an exam, and that is not something that we can agree or disagree, but I think dictation must be there, and the dictation activities have to be there. We want the students to be able to speak, and we want the students to be fluent eventually in the target language. Can we move to the next slide, please?
Indeed.
Okay, so what we're going to present to you today is a proposal on how the progression from the dictation could look like in terms of activities for your students. So we've thought about it very hard on this. We came up with a conclusion of having 4 stages of dictation, all the way from key stage 3 to key stage 4. So all this is applicable all the way in both key stages. Stage 1 is about just recognizing some phonemes and recognizing some graphemes, and then to be able not to transcribe full words, but just part of words, okay, with a lot of support from the teacher. So we're going to show you some activities on that. Stage 2 is about medium challenge. So we want now the students to transcribe words and not just chunks or part of the words, but a whole word or small sentences, again with support from us. Stage 3, what we want now here is the students to start transcribing whole sentences with now removing the support little by little. And finally, the activities from stage 4 is when you go high challenge, no support, which is transcribe longer text unaided, which is eventually what they will need to do for their GCSE exam. So can we move on? Thank you. So let's just start with low challenge and high support activities. So we've got 3 activities, okay, that I'm sure some of you already do without realizing that you're doing this. First thing is like present students with some words. So you got examples there in French and examples in Spanish, and just remove the phoneme that you just want to practice. So for example, in Spanish, a very famous one is huh, okay. In English, in French, we got the I, okay, and just have some gaps. And the students, everything they need to do is you read the words and they just have to fill in, the sound that they're hearing. Once they get more and more confident, you can have activities with 2 phonemes, and they can actually distinguish, especially the ones that are very similar. This would be particularly useful in French, I think. And then later on, okay, you can do even 3 phonemes. Okay, so the idea is that you start adding to your repertoire of phonemes that you want to practice. I also I'm a firm believer of doing phonics in context, not just okay, we're going to do a sound because we want to, but actually there are going to be opportunities, okay, within the topic to really see the sound a lot of times. Okay, I think that's very, very, very important. So that would be an activity, very simple, and I think it would work really well as well with mini whiteboards, but definitely as well in a little worksheet. Okay, so we've got next one, please. Now, next idea is dictation, tick and flick, and I want to really make the link here on how dictation is so linked to listening. Okay, for me, dictation is like listening, and the difference is with the dictation is that you actually have the transcript, and I think it's really good as well to do activities where you give them like the transcript, like here you can give them basically some words. This could be chunks, okay, as well little chunks like me llamo or mi familia, mis amigos, and you just read them, and the students tick the ones that they hear. So this works really well as well. Sometimes you may mention words that are not there, or you may mention a chunk that is not there. Okay, so they really need to hear to the sound. But what it is very important is that they can see as well how the sound that they're hearing corresponds to the grapheme that they are reading or they got in front of them. And that is the difference. It's not just a listening activity, what can you hear? Okay, but actually, what can you hear and can you make the connection on how is it written? Okay, that you know what it is, that correlation. I think that is actually really, really important. Okay, so we can do next activity, please. Now, next activity is very similar to the previous one, but now it's a little bit of a competition. And by the way, all these activities that we're doing, you may think, oh, this is a little bit boring. You can gamify. Because if you're using mini whiteboards, you can actually ask students to give themselves a point. They can use a tally, how many you get right. And then you can actually be competitions between teams as well. So you may have team A doing the activity with the first activity with the phonemes, and then team B. And at the end, if most people in team A, get the point, they just basically the overall winners, etc. So try to think as well of how can you gamify the experience of the phonics. And that's what the snap dictation is. Snap dictation is the same activity as before, but what you do now is that you give in a piece of paper to a pair of students. So you divide the class in pairs. And the idea is that the students are competing against each other. You read the sentences, all the chunks, all the words, okay? Give them some thinking time. So there's no like always one will be the winner. Thinking time, what it is, try to memorize it in your head, okay? What I've just said, okay? 1, 2, 3, circle the word that I've just said. But there is only one piece of paper between two people. Okay, so the idea now is that the quickest to circle it between the two players are the winners. Okay, or is the winner the person who just basically do it quickly, so you can have the 15 turners in your class, and then they just have to go, they just play against each other. And I think that works quite well in them, and they get a point. How many points that everyone with your partner you get, basically. Okay, so that is a snap dictation. Can we move to the next one, please? Bingo dictation. Again, we're still working in very small words and phonemes, etc. So for this one, it's just a bingo. Okay, so you can show them just for support a board with the sounds, with the syllables, with that you want to practice. So that would be for me, for example, in Spanish. That you give the students as well a little a box with a table with 9 boxes, or they can draw the table in a mini whiteboards, and they choose 9 of those syllables. Okay, basically. Then you read them. So we read them like sa, do, ko, randomly, and it's just a bingo. So the first person to really sing a full line or the 9 boxes is basically the winner. Think as well as how once you create a resource like that, how can you maximize it? So for example, one activity that we do with this as well is to do reading aloud. So I may have a reading aloud competition again among my students. So I have Team A against Team B. So Team A can start reading the first row. Ka, sa, ga. How quick, how accurate can you read it? Then it's Team B. You can do a ping pong kind of activity. So one starts ka, then Team B, sa, then A, ga. So you're doing the reading aloud at the same time as the dictation. And then using this, you can move on to words, because some of these syllables, they've been chosen because they make up words. So you make them dictate things like, I don't know, tráfico, and they got here tra, and they got the fi, and they got the ko. So they got all the vocabulary in there to help them write and give them the support that they need. You may do casa, and they need to recognize again the what is the grapheme and how it represents basically the phoneme with the grapheme. Sorry. Okay, so I think that is the biggest difference with listening, making that link for the students. We go to the next one, please. Okay, now, sorry, that was your next one now.
You can have a little well-earned break, Esme. So we're moving on now to medium challenge, medium support. So this is at a point perhaps a little bit down the line where you've practiced some of the more basic, more supported activities that Esme's just run through, and where that you're wanting the students to become a little bit more independent. So still offering them a certain level of support, but not too much spoon feeding, perhaps as in the first stage. So this activity is called back-to-back gap-fill dictation. So this is something they would do in pairs And the idea is that the back-to-back dictation would contain differing gaps in the same shared text. So you would label the students person A and person B, and person A would start and read up to their first gap, and then person B would continue until their next gap, and so on and so on. And the idea is that they sit back to back so that obviously they can't see their partner's text. And then at the end of the activity, they can obviously turn and face each other and compare notes. So I think that is, again, a nice, not quite out of seats, but it's the sort of activity I think that we are known for in the languages classroom, where the children actually appreciate the opportunity not just to be sat in rows or in table groups, but actually getting to work with a partner and working through something in tandem. So the next activity we're going to suggest is a gap fill from a transcript. And I think this could easily be taken from the textbook, so it doesn't necessarily mean that the teacher has to come up with a text of their own. It could just be, for example, a transcript of a listening task. So I know certainly with my current GCSE students, not those who are going to be sitting the new exam, but we use activities from the AQA textbook. And often when I've done a listening, I will actively share the transcript with the students, and I'll exploit that further. I'll pull out other words that I think are important. I'll ask them, a series of questions to try and really maximize the text. So you take your text, whatever it might be, and the gap fill should ideally be no more than a few sentences max at this stage. If you are aware of the expectations of the new exam, if you've looked at some of the exemplar assessment material, you will actually see that what is expected in terms of dictation is not particularly demanding. It's just a number of short sentences. So depending on the confidence of the learners, the teacher could offer a range of words in a text box, as we said with one of the previous activities, and include some red herrings just to increase that level of challenge slightly. Another option might be delayed dictation. And I think for those of you who are already familiar with the EPI methodology, you will have heard of this technique already. So pupils hear and see a sentence for 10 seconds. And ideally, this will contain a minimum of 95% of comprehensible input. So making sure that the students have actually come across the language previously. And the teacher tells them to hold that phrase in their heads for 10 seconds before writing it down. And as they do this, you could make funny noises, you could utter random second language words to distract them for a few seconds, or if you prefer, if that's just not your thing, you could just have silence. I think this is where it's about knowing your classes. And then finally, you ask your students to write the sentence on their mini whiteboards or in their books, and then they show you their answers and you can compare their answer with the correct answer. So an example of a simple delayed dictation activity, I need to put my teeth back in, is below in French. So they look at the phrase on the board for 10 seconds, and once it's gone, they write it down. So it could just be something as simple as j'habite avec ma famille à York. Ma famille est petite. Now we're saying that that's quite simple, but we've got the silent H. So again, their phonic awareness will come into play here. We've got the Y sound, the double L in French, which some of them again might struggle with slightly. You've got the accent on the letter A. Again, we've got famille for a second time, and then a little bit of grammar awareness there as well, being able to recognize that the petite would need an E in order for that to agree in the feminine. Okay, over to you, Esme.
Hi, right, thank you. Right, so next level is high challenge and low support. So we want now is moving away from single words and longer sentences, basically. We've already been doing sentences before, but a little bit longer sentences and small paragraphs as well. So one of my favorite activities, and also Susie's, is running dictation. And for that, you can have it in sentences, or sometimes I have a text, a whole paragraph. But what I've done is I divided in chunks. Okay, so when you look at it, it's not it's not scary. So I divided the sentences, basically make up a really nice paragraph, and write it all around the classroom, the same ones. Divide the class in 3 or 4s. One person is going to be the transcribe, and it's going to be basically it's going to be sitting on the table, and then the other people are going to be taking turns to run to their designated text, where it is, whatever it is in the classroom. I always number them, so I give them one for every group of people. They go there, they read it. I encourage them to read it aloud, so I'm around and I can hear them. Okay, they read it, try to memorize it. They keep saying in their heads, which I think is very powerful. Come back to their location and say to the scribe. The scribe will write it down, okay, and then when it's done, it will pass the pen to another person, okay, so that it all taking turns in being a scribe and running to get the text basically for the running dictation. That if you want to do it in groups of 3 or 4. I've also done it in person. It works really well. So half the text is done between 2 people. One person comes and goes and comes back all the time, and then you swap. Basically, depends basically on how big your classes are, basically, and the space that you've got. So I think that is really good. What I like doing with this as well to exploit activity is that when it's finished, I always project the text in the board, the big board, and then we can analyze it. We can translate it. We can read it aloud again with different voices. We can do again reading aloud ping pong. Team A, team B, okay, and then it's a wonderful opportunity as well to show modeling answers as well if you're working with key stage 4 students, okay, that they things that they could use themselves for their own writing or their own speaking activities later. So making that link, I think, is very important as well. Can we move on? Next one.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of my favorite ones, and actually, this is an example that I used literally last week, okay, with my students, with my year 8s, okay. So the idea here is basically I show them on the board, okay, something like that, okay, and then the students just write 1 to 10 in the box, and I just read 10 sentences randomly, very slowly. If you look at it, the sentences are very similar, so they really need to listen for detail here, okay? And the point is, all the sentences are reading, they can see on the board, and they just have to write the coordinates. So if I read, me gusta salir con mis amigos porque me hace sentir bien, it will be much slower, by the way, they need to write A1 or 1A. Okay, so the idea is a little bit of they are, again, it's a listening, but they need to make that connection between the listening and word and the graphing and the phoneme. I think there is a difference between a normal listening activity. I like this activity because once we've done it, they play in games, battleships, where they read aloud. Okay, so there is a fantastic opportunity. Once you finish, you spend the time making this lovely thing. I just don't just do the the dictation or listening battleships, but actually they just sit down in pairs and they choose 5-6 boxes, and they need to find out where the different sentences or the partners, okay, crosses are, like in a battleship game. And then for homework, they can translate these model sentences with a very good examples as well of modeling good language, and they can translate them as well into English. So from one activity, you can then exploit it in different ways as well. Okay, so that is why I like this one. Let's go to the next one. So next one is fill in the gaps, as we taught before with the transcript. The difference of the challenge now is that we don't know where the gaps are. So this has to be one of my favorite activities. And you can do it with sentences, as you got an example here. Normalmente suelo al fútbol con mis amigos, or you can have a whole text if you want to do it, with Key Stage 4 as well, which I actually did one last, I think 2 weeks ago with my year 11s, a whole big text, and they didn't know where the gaps were. The way I like doing it is because I can have a really good, rich conversation with the students before we do the actual dictation, where I actually tell them, where can you predict where the gaps are? Okay, because then you are developing grammar. So for example, here you go, normalmente suelo al fútbol, you can see that doesn't make sense. You would need, so we can have the conversation. Why doesn't it make sense? What kind of word do you need in there? So you're having a conversation about grammar, you need a verb, or in which form, was actually the infinitive, why, which one you think you would be most likely, and they can do prediction, which I think is really important as well later on for the GCSE exam as well. Can they predict what the language that they're going to hear as well. So the way it works, then you read this to the students. Normalmente suelo jugar al fútbol con mis amigos. And in the first instance, they identify where the word is. And I read it a second time, and they write now without, what they hear. In this case, would be jugar al fútbol. So it is the word in there. And I think that works, again, really, really well. And if you do a text, at the end, what you end up with is a model little text, okay, again, for modeling purposes, for writing or speaking, that they can actually translate, if you want, into English at the same time. Okay, so shall we move on? Next one is a very classic one as well, unjumble the words or sentences. It's up to you. You can have it. I've tried here, for example, unjumble the letters within the word. So this is a normal dictation. But to give them some support, although it is low, you give them the words, the letters, all jumbled. And to help you with that, use ChatGPT or something like that, so you don't need to spend ages. You can actually go to ChatGPT and say, look, these are my sentences. My sentences. Can you please jumble those into, the letters within every word, or the words within the sentences, so you don't spend ages doing this, because otherwise it would take you forever. So a little bit of tip there. And I think it's another activity that I really, really love in preparation to just transcribe jugar al fútbol, or it could be suelo, or it could be a whole sentence where you got the words mixed up, basically. Okay, so the words are all unjumbled. Next one. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and then we'll move on now. So once they're ready, okay, it's now activities where it is high challenge, and now you remove all support whatsoever. Okay, so the obvious one is the classic dictation, okay, where they just basically, there is nothing to unjumble, there are no words in the box where to choose from. You just read to them and they write it down with no support whatsoever. And I actually, although it's highly challenge and no support, I start as well after a few activities with the other ones. When I'm introducing new topics at Key Stage 3, I start dictating sentences like that, small sentences, straight away with my year 7s. Okay, so they get really very small ones, but so they get really used to, and I want to show them how good they can be. Okay, so that is a very powerful activity that you can do even with the very, very young students, if they are very small sentences like juego al fútbol, something like that. So that's just the normal classic dictation. Next one. And this one is one of my favorite. It has to be one of my favorite activities, which is buzz gap dictation, or just basically clapping dictation, where basically what happens that I dictate sentences to the students, small ones like here, me gusta salir, or a buzz, and they have to write me gusta salir, but then, okay, they need to fill, when I do a clap or a buzz, they need to fill in or write something that makes sense in the given context. So this is really good for retrieval practice, and to see how much knowledge they've got on the topic, and to make them think on the spot and be a little bit spontaneous. Porque think of something. And I love this. I do this with mini whiteboards. And then when I'm doing that, I can see that some students may say, me gusta salir con mis amigos. And then other ones would say, me gusta salir con mis amigos el fin de semana al parque. It's unbelievable, the difference. So then you start moving and making the link between dictation and writing and speaking. And then you can, if everybody's doing it at the same time, you can have a look. Why is this good? Why is it that good? Okay, how can we improve, etc. Okay, so the next one. Going to, okay, finish the sentence. So this is very similar to the other one, okay? So finish the sentence is that I dictate the beginning of the sentence and they have to finish it. Okay, so very similar to the other one. Now, the difference is I would expect now longer utterances or longer input from the students, okay? So en mi tiempo libre me gusta. Finish the sentence with me. And I give them parameters. okay? Say, try to use an infinitive, or don't use an infinitive, or use an infinitive and opinion, or try to use an infinitive, try to include a past tense if I'm talking with key state form, okay? So I'm giving them parameters, and then they get points for that. They do it in the mini whiteboards again, and they show it in again, and then we can have a look, okay, what is right, what is wrong, etc. This is another one of my favorite as well, activities, mistaken dictation, where I say sentences with grammatical errors and purpose, and sometimes they don't. So I just say sentences. Some of them got errors, and some of them they don't have any, and they need to spot it. So they write it down, and they need to tell me, okay, actually this is a wrong sentence, and then why is it wrong, and then they need to correct it themselves. So this one, en mi tiempo libre me gusta juego, obviously that's wrong, should be jugar. Okay, so if they write, and this is, if they write juego and nobody notices, I would say, is that correct? Why? And someone always notices when you give them the prompt. Some kids are very good at straight away to knowing it's wrong, and they write the right answer. And some of them they need to be prompted. But I think it's really good as well to make the link as well between the dictation, the writing, and assess grammar knowledge of common mistakes. Up to you.
So just before we round things off and hopefully have time for one or two questions, a little bit about using free technology. So the first website that I wanted to recommend to assist with the teaching and learning of dictation is TeachVid. So if you are not aware of this website, you go on and there are lots of uploaded videos. So the example here is a music video. And the idea is that once you load up the video, you have got a number of different activities that your students can play. So this is perfect for either in use in lessons if you've got tablets or laptops, or in fact for homework. So you can see on the top left, there's a range of activities, multiple choice, word blocks, gap fill, gap spell. What I particularly like in terms of the dictation is the spaces, the jumbling. You can have the vowels deleted, you can have the consonants deleted. So again, it's very closely linked to their phonic awareness. So definitely take a look at that one just to see how that might also supplement what you are doing in lessons. And then in terms of apps, a new one that I've come across recently is an app, and there's also a website called SpeechLing. There is a specific section of the website and the app which is for dictation, and that ranges from beginner all the way up to advanced level. So again, your students could start on a very basic level with just simple words and then move on to more complex sentences and phrases. And there's also a SpeechLing audio dictionary, which again, in terms of assisting the students with their growing understanding of phonics, is absolutely fantastic. And you can see from the screenshots at the bottom, they are available in a number of languages. Just to say, the examples that we've shared with you today have obviously been in French and Spanish. So Esme and I were responsible for the writing of the French and Spanish dictation packs, but they do actually exist in German as well, and we'll speak to you about that in just a moment or two.
Thank you. And just to show you again, very quickly with technology, how you can spice up a little bit of your lessons. Why not using an avatar? To do your dictation? That works really well for homework in particular. So do you have here is basically a little tutorial to create an avatar using a Snapchat. Because what I've done, this is just me with the Snapchat, and then I use the filter, which is a cartoon, and then I'm just talking, it's a little 45 seconds. I can make it 30 sentences, and the idea is that I speak, and then the students can do all the activities that we've mentioned before for homework and jumble sentences, just transcribe what you hear, etc. Okay, so this is a really fun way, and my students normally they love seeing me as a Disney character. So you just play just 2 seconds, just see what I mean.
The time, Esme, just so we've got time.
Oh wait, that's fine. Okay, let's go.
I'm going to skip over the how-to, but obviously.
Oh my God, yes, you're right.
But let me show you your example because it's lovely. It's really nice, and you make a brilliant Disney cartoon character.
Yes, keep on moving. Okay, because I think yes.
Let me just show this a clip from this one.
Yeah.
El año pasado, cuando estaba de vacaciones en España. Ese día estaba muy contenta.
Okay, you can stop it out. I just want to show how it realistically looks with the features as well. So I think that is really
looks
lovely.
amazing. And there's a little how-to video there for you to look at in
That's
your
it. And it's so free. And just if you want, you got the flippity manipulatives with vocary that you can use. There is an activity there to show, to see basically what I mean by that. Okay, where you basically record yourself and then you give them, the students, the text in chunks, and they have to listen and put the text in the right order. I think that works really well. And one which is, I think, very good is a screen pal dictation, where you actually can record yourself, okay, as with an app that you guys, actually it's not an app, it is you put it in, oh my god, a Chrome is one of the Chrome, oh my god, I've forgotten the word.
Like an extension.
That's it, extension, that's it. It's a Chrome extension for ScreenPal, and then you just it saves basically your little face, and you can actually incorporate it into a wheel of names, for example. So these children play the wheel of names, and then it will be you talking instead of a sentence when everything stops. I think that's very good as well to make it really nice, fun, and a game. So you got links to that to see basically the activity.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to looking at those ones. Okay, so just to finish and round off with, if you could have a look in the chat, please, Esme, for any questions. Just a few top tips to round things off. So I think the first point really is to work on pupils' phonic awareness first. We know that phonics is going to play much more of an important role in the new GCSE. But I think it would be really difficult for the students to master dictation if they haven't already got a fairly advanced level of phonic awareness. You're going to build your pupils' confidence over time. So we're suggesting here that with some of the more basic activities that you start in Key Stage 3, or if we have got indeed any primary practitioners on the call, you can start even earlier than that if you think that your students are capable of that. So if as a teacher you fear that dictation is boring, you can always spice it up with your delivery. So as we suggested earlier, exaggerated intonation, silly voices. I've just recently bought a robot voice converter, and I'm really excited for that to arrive this weekend, because I think that's going to encourage my students to want to do a bit more speaking. Using gestures to drop hints and add some fun. So specifically for French, you might use exaggerated arm gestures for French accents. Deliberately use very slow, very fast, very loud, very quiet delivery, and also asking your pupils for their ideas, because I often find that when I turn it to them and say, look, how do you think we could do this? How can we add a little bit of life into this topic? They come up with the best ideas. So just a couple of things to finish with. The ideas that we presented to you today actually come from some packs that Esme and I have co-authored over the summer. So we are very well versed in the art of dictation after having spent a lot of the summer holidays writing these packs. So as I suggested earlier, they are the activities we've shown you today are French and Spanish, but the pack does also exist in German, thanks to our lovely colleague Sylvia Basto. And if you visit the link at the top, if you are a Teach It Languages subscriber, you get those for absolutely 0 pence. And you can also choose to purchase those if you don't currently subscribe to Teach It. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Esme, if you do have a subscription, which is very, very reasonable, it actually pays to be a subscriber, because it works out cheaper to do that and have access to all of the different packs, not just mastering dictation, but there are lots of packs around phonics, around translation, writing, so and a wealth of ideas for languages teachers. So do please check those out. Just a little plug, as both of us work as volunteers for the Association for Language Learning, there's a little discount code there at the bottom if you are interested in joining us. It is the major professional association for all teachers of all languages, so please do take a look at that, and if you scan the QR code, it will give you a bit more information. So I think just to finish with a big thank you from Esme and I, we are both on Twitter, although having just joined a new schools head of department, I think both of us are probably tweeting less perhaps at the moment than we generally do. The QR code that you can see there will take you to a copy of the presentation, so please do take a photograph of that, and it will link you to the slides from today. Did we have any questions in the chat, Esme, just to finish with? I think we've got a couple of minutes to look at those.
Okay, so it's like, I'm not a teacher, and it's a while since I did dictation at the school. At the time, we needed to know the words for particular pieces of punctuation, column, question mark, etc. Is this still the case with your new 2024 syllabus? I don't think it is the case, because what I've seen, so correct me if I'm right, Susie, what I've seen, it's very small sentences. A foundation is like words and filling the gaps in some of the boards. So I don't think it will go like in the traditional way that what we did. I know what you mean. I used to do dictation as well as school, and it was like a very long pieces of like text, and I don't think that is the case. Am I right?
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that the full stops, the exclamation marks, etc., matter. I think it's more a question of being able to fill in the gaps that are missing in a sentence, and then certainly at higher level, depending on the exam board that you are with, it might also be a question of trying to write out a full sentence. But even with the full sentences, it is never more than about 6 or 7 words. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going back into the presentation as we speak, just to try and check that we've got the right link for you, because I think someone in the chat said,
I'm going to put it in the chat now. But
okay, perfect. I think we just need to make sure that the sharing.
I don't know. I tried it this morning.
Yeah, I think I tried it too. Let me just double check.
Open, but what I'm going to do, try to.
Anyone can access the link according to what I've got here. Yeah. Apologies, folks.
So, copy link. I'm going to put it as a link in the chat.
Perfect. Thank
you. I don't know, I tried it just before.
Typical.
So sorry.
Wonders of technology. Don't worry, Esme. I'm sure we can get that working.
I tried it.
Find the chat. Oh, here we go.
It is there.
And I think I've just put it in as well. So one or both of those links should work, I think, guys.
We'll together.
So you want to just check that before we log off? We'll actually add it into the slides, and then we'll make sure that the QR code is correct.
I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna
for anybody who's watching back on the link. But do contact us either on Twitter or on our email addresses in the first slide.
Yeah, I will share it with you, definitely. Try to convert it into a
Tell us whether that link now works. Give us a thumbs up. You can't see a link. Just above where you've posted, Samantha, there should be a Google Docs. I think you may not have sent it to everyone. Oh, hosts and panelists. Wait a minute, maybe I have posted. Wait a minute, I think I'm not posting it to everyone. Right, let me try again.
I think I've done probably the same thing. I'm going to put into a QR code.
We've managed to survive the presentation, and then we've fallen at the last hurdle, Esme. Right. You're all in. Excellent. That's brilliant, Charlie. Thank you for letting us know it's working.
What I'm going to do as well, I'm going to put it, okay, as a QR code for if anyone watches us later on.
There will be links to the chat as well.
Okay, so
I think we are running over by a couple of minutes, so I'm sure you've got other sessions to go to, but I hope that was useful. Thank you for your positive comments.
Oh, it doesn't allow me to.
Please do make a copy of yourself. And good luck with your preparations for the new GCSE. Remember, we're all in this together. It's one of the reasons why our subject association is so important at such a time as now, because obviously the more we work together, the more we are saving ourselves time and trying to get that elusive work-life balance that we all dream of. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of myself and Esme, and enjoy the rest of your language show live.
Yes, thank you very much. And get in touch if there is a problem with the link for people who see us later on. Okay, we are more than happy. We are on Twitter, more than happy. And you go to our email, so we
contact us either via email, Twitter, etc.
Okay, thank you so much. But I couldn't put that on the chat, the QR code, because it's an image. So I think you're allowed. That's it. That is basically
not a problem. Well, the link is in the chat, and if you're watching back and you can't see the chat, please do just contact us on our Twitter handles, and we'd be more than happy to help. But it's been great joining you this afternoon. I'm about to hop off for half an hour, and I may see some of you a little bit later for my next session. Thank you, Esme, for your help and support today. It's been a pleasure presenting with you.
Thank you. Okay,
guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now. Bye-bye.